It'll be a shock to nobody that if you were to ask Andrew, hey, should Japan really focus on making anime and manga and light novels to fit international standards? Should it fit the global mold that they want their storytelling to have? I would say absolutely not. Do not change what you're creating to global sensitivities. Do not change it to meet certain standards elsewhere. Keep making what you're making. You mangaka over there, you author over there, you director over there, whatever's in that brain of you, no matter how offensive it is, no matter how crazy it is, no matter how shocking it is, put it to paper, put it to film, put it to animation. Keep doing what you're doing because it's exactly what so many fans have come to you for. You gave that to us, give it to us again, and keep giving us to us. Do not fit some sort of mold. And this is a topic that I think most people have already had in their brain at some point. This is a common discussion that I think we've all had, especially whenever it comes to, fears of censorship, whenever it comes to, some certain company trying to make something global, all that kind of stuff. It's always a constant fear in the back of our minds. And it's really easy to kind of be there because we've seen it happen in the West. We've seen where things like the comic book industry and whatnot has changed, and it's become not what we love, and that industry has died. We don't want to see that happen in Japan. But that's a conversation that has come to the forefront in a big, big way here recently, thanks to Dandadan. This whole situation with Dandadan is just a curse that keeps on cursing. Yes, for those that missed it, Dandadan, they finally made their big statement. They basically apologized for them using all that material from Yoshiki and X Japan. Said, we're sorry. We were just trying to take what the manga had, and we wanted to make it its own creative thing with the music and everything. We're sorry. We should have talked to the right people. It won't happen again. Big boo-boo by us. But that wasn't really the big deal here. Again, what sort of happened from this is we had this guy, Masaki Kito. He decided to open his mouth, and it kind of blew up. This guy, basically, from what I understand, he is based on the community note, he got community noted. He's been a lawyer for X Japan in the past, and so there is a little bit of conflict of interest here. But essentially what he said in reply to this statement made by them is regarding Dandadan, there has also been discussion about the protagonist's name, Kentakakura. And my opinion is that we should pause once again, including reflecting on the past, to create manga in accordance with international standards. Oopsie, big bad words right there. Big bad words right there. There's the trigger point. This is necessary for the internationalization of Japanese manga and anime, and I believe it's precisely this approach that aligns with taking this opportunity to collectively consider creating initiatives for the future, fostering a forward-looking perspective. Nope. Don't like those words. Nope, don't like those words. And this statement right here blew up, especially in Japan. Blew up. We have here again, Zenko. Love the guy. He's been doing a lot of free speech and trying to keep things from getting censored type of stuff in Japan for the anime fans over here. He said Japanese intellectuals often say manga and anime should be brought up to international standards. We need to seriously communicate the correct reasons why Japanese content culture has been so highly regarded around the world. Dude, speaking truth. There's a reason why we love it. There's a reason why it's booming so freaking much. It's because, again, a lot in the West, a lot of creators are becoming very censored. They're meeting certain standards for certain Puritans and people that don't like, bad stuff. That kind of stuff. Regarding the anime, there is also controversy over the name of the main character. Yep, Ken Takakura. And he stated his opinion, I believe we should take a step back, including our past, and create manga that meets international standards. So to give a clarification here for those that don't know what this name is, yes, our main character of Dandadan, his real name is Ken Takakura. And based on the anime itself, it pretty much spells it out for you based on what happens on the screen. Yes, Ayase, the main girl, she absolutely loves this guy who's this big, massive star. And so whenever she hears Okuran's real name, it makes her freak out. Like, no, don't break that image that I have of this hunky guy that I love so much. So that's why she always calls him Okuran. What this guy's saying, what this lawyer is saying back here is that, yeah, that name, that brand, which it's like a Chuck Norris character of the West. That Chuck Norris character could be licensed somewhere else, and you could see legal issues. Again, this is a lawyer with a lawyer brain. But I want to make a point here. The reason why this is blowing up so much is this is a very prominent lawyer. It's a very big lawyer. And again, this guy's worked for X Japan, a lot of other countries, Sony. He's worked for a lot of companies. He's somebody that people look to and listen to. And so there's a lot of fear about him talking about, meeting some sort of international standards. That's why this is blowing up. Now, yes, he did follow up eventually because this guy right here, which I believe he's a part of the director of General Incorporated Association Manga Research Institute, he wrote up a massive write-up talking about, yes, how this is not a good thing. You should not do this. He made a lot of good points in this whole entire write-up. I don't really want to read this whole entire thing here, but it's good reads. And it's in reply to this lawyer. And the lawyer eventually, follows up and says, "Thank you for your opinion. However, the main point of my opinion is that the sensitivities to the laws and etiquette of each country in advance is necessary. Hollywood is merely an example. I would be glad if you could understand that I am not saying to aim for Hollywood." So that's a clarification there. The guy didn't mean to say you should make your stuff like Hollywood. You should make it globally acceptable. He's talking specifically laws and etiquette. Again, to the whole thing with Kintakakura. Make sure that that is legal elsewhere. He said that was a discussion at some point. Should that be allowed globally? You might have to change it. I think there's some other people that have replied to him basically saying a good point here. If that's the case, if it's just legal specifically with, again, Yoshiki, X-Japan, Kintakakura, then make sure that whenever you license it elsewhere, the licensor elsewhere will have to think of that. That has nothing to do with the creators in Japan. That has nothing to do with them. Now, to his point, that is good to think of that because, yes, you might not get it licensed elsewhere if it makes a reference to something that a licensor could not get any sort of agreement for. But that gets, again, back to the original point here. I think he sort of stirred up a very big hornet's nest around this. And a lot of people are speaking up. Do not make this stuff to international standards. Do not meet some sort of point that you want to make in order for everybody to accept it. Enough that Morita here, Morita sensei, a very prominent mangaka, came out and replied to it. If we start drawing manga according to international standards, it'll probably get boring, huh? He knows it. This guy's made a ton of stuff, a lot of very incredible stuff that, again, might not meet certain global standards. This is stuff that, yeah, in some cases, they're not going to like it. He doesn't want that. Nobody wants that. And I do love that, again, even though it seems like, I'm trying to give this guy a little bit of leeway here. It seems like this lawyer, again, put his foot in his mouth. But the good thing that came out of this is a lot of people bringing some sort of spotlight globally and domestically in Japan, Japanese users saying, no, don't do that. Again, like I said back here, even having politicians and, again, institute people coming forward and saying, no, you don't understand what has made this so popular. We know because we've seen how it happened. We've seen how this stuff has blown up. And again, I go back to talking about my own experience with the whole situation. I love this comic, by the way. This is literally it right here. It's literally it right here. I made this thing that you like. Hey, we like this thing. I don't like that thing. Okay, I made changes to the thing. We don't want that no more. Here, okay, you want it? No, I never wanted it to begin with. It's that whole situation there. This is something that literally is in my original love of anime. I've told this story before, but in my early years, early years, like I said before, one of the earliest deep-rooted memories that I have was watching Akira on VHS. Popping that into a VHS player, and the one that sticks out to me the most, that whole scene where they have like the big old layout of the street, and the two sides on the street itself, the terrorists and whatnot, and the police and everything, and there's this massive explosions. The guy comes out there, and he starts screaming, and all the windows just shatter. It was like mind-blowing for me as a kid. I shouldn't have been watching it, but I watched it. I shouldn't have been watching it, but I watched it. And that went into other things like Tenchi Muyo, which again, Tenchi Muyo I should not have been watching, and it would never be allowed to be made over here. A lot of the early Tenchi Muyos, just great stuff. Project Eiko. Like these are the things that I grew up with and I fell in love with anime for. Stuff that, again, in international standards would not be allowed. This is stuff that's too much. It's too much for today's standards. It's too much for Western standards. But I keep coming back to it. Why? Because even after I fell in love with anime and I realized that drawn, animated visuals can have deep and rich, and yes, in some cases, a little etchy and inappropriate content in it, it was something I've never seen before and I couldn't get anywhere else. Yes, I could get a little bit of that from like certain comics and whatnot, but now, especially today, you can't get it anymore. It's not allowed anymore. All the comics is dying away. And guess what? The manga industry is taking over comics. It's selling like crazy in the West. Why? Because they don't hold back. They don't hold back. Shoot, a recent manga release that will never, ever get made by anybody over here. Takabe's Original Sin. This has so much in it that it doesn't hold back in making. It doesn't hold back on any of it because there's a reason why it has to do that. It has to do the horrific looks. It has to dig into the horrific things. It has to get in some really dark subjects that a lot of people shouldn't read if they're in a bad place. Some people will find a lot of comfort in that. Some people will find self-reflection in that. For me personally, being somebody that was bullied, I loved getting into somebody that was the bully. Seeing what made them tick and what made them into what they are. That's the kind of storytelling that, again, is not restricted over there in Japan, that is restricted in a lot of other places. And again, I've said it before and I'll say it over and over again. There is this sort of mentality that it's all United States, but I think there's even other countries that, when you think of international, for me personally, I see as being much more restrictive. There's a lot of countries like, China and whatnot that are much more restrictive. And this idea that it needs to fit all those in order for it to become more global is the big dangerous area. And it's something that I've been shouting about for a long time now. The more you make things more global, it's like that whole Square Enix app they released at some point with the manga being like overly censored. They wanted to make it acceptable everywhere because they wanted to launch it globally to so many countries that you couldn't even show skin. That's the difficulty there. This is a country that has released what we call a medium of anime and manga and light novel that tells stories that are very tough. A story of girls who are essentially molded into becoming soldiers. A concept that, again, it's a little bit too much for many people. My first box set I ever bought, Evangelion. This right here is something that is so insanely creative. And I could never see really anybody else creating this. Berserk, very topical right now from some stupid clickbait website that loves to make stupid articles that gets people's clickbait rage. Yeah, Berserk. Can't see that happening in the West. Mushoku Tensei. Yeah. A lot of tough subject matter in this one. I could never see this ever lasting if they met international standards. Interspecies reviewers. Hell no, you're not going to see this meeting international standards. I'm surprised this got released in the West. Thank you so much, Nozomi Entertainment. Before you die, it's like their swan song before they got consumed by Sony and killed, butchered. Yeah, this is not going to happen to those international standards. It's something that, again, I'm giving you a roadmap of my life right here. That this initially grabbed me. This lack of meeting international standards grabbed me. It made me fall in love with this medium. And yes, part of that is because it shows me TNA. When I was a young kid, it showed me TNA. But the thing that kept me to it wasn't the TNA. It was all the stories within it. All these stories within it that kept me hooked. Wow, animation could do that. And the moment you make it to international standards, you killed it. But even then, he is bringing up something that I think people will think about. That when it comes to things like Yoshiki and X-Japan's legal rights, not even just in Japan, but globally, what will happen then? And again, I think the answer to that is simply the idea that whoever licenses it, whatever company, Crunchyroll, whatever they handle it. That's not for Japan to think about. That's not for Dandadan's production community to think about. What they have to think about is making something great. And then beyond that point, it's whoever puts it in whatever country they put it in. They'll handle it there. The fear here is that, yes, if they were to make Dandadan fit every single country's legal and obligations-wise, it's going to sanitize anime down to nothing. So even if he corrected himself, even though he is correcting himself back here saying, I'm just giving Hollywood as an example, the point is that if you try to meet standards globally, even if you're not talking about making your stuff be like Hollywood and be super sanitized, it will become sanitized because every country has more and more restrictions legally that will hold back the creative process. The main key thing here is to remember, and this is a call out to any Japanese creator out there that's listening to this, which is probably zero, put to paper what you want to create. Mangaka, draw what you want to draw. Author, write what you want to write. Director, produce what you want to produce. Let the licensors handle the rest. Don't limit yourself at the creative process. That's the key thing there.